Het volgende gaan we doen. Eerst komt Joseph Jeffe, zo direct met een presentatie live after the 30-second spot. Die gaat uitleggen waarom het helemaal mis is met de bestaande traditionele media en hoe internet alles gaat veranderen. Want te beginnen televisie gaat opblazen. Nou, dat is altijd leuk. Dan komen er 5 specialisten uit ons veld komen daar een reactie op geven. Dat zijn Harry Dekker van Unilever, Mark Kootjans van de Rabobank. Dat zijn mensen die een hoop geld verkwisten in televisiereclames, als we meneer Jeffe goed begrijpen. Ron van Schaik van Kara, die het onzorgvuldig belegt. En Shula Rijksma van e.day TV. Ik zei ID&T bijna, maar die fout maak ik altijd. En daarna hebben we gelijk een laptopwissel. En dan komt Ben Hammersley de dag afsluiten. Dat was de jongen die vanmorgen begon met de video tussen de presentatie van Google en de presentatie van Amazon. Dus het is allemaal achter elkaar, er is geen pauze meer. En het duurt in zich heel ongeveer 1 uur en 10 minuten. Dus ondanks de warmte willen jullie vragen om gewoon toch te blijven zitten. Al is het al uit beleefdheid naar alle mensen die dat eind hierheen gereden zijn voor een uurtje. So I'll switch to English now. The next presenter is Mr. Joseph Jeffe. Joseph is an expert in the field of interactive marketing. He was founder of getthejuice.com, but he just told me, don't mention that, I'm not doing anything there anymore. Mention jeffejuice.com. Is that where you're blogging now? jeffejuice.com. A new marketing consultant. He was for a long time active in the traditional field of, the field of traditional advertising. And has seen the light, wrote a book, live after the 30-second spot, energize your brand with a bold mix of alternatives to traditional advertising. Created a lot of waves in online marketing, and I'm hoping also in traditional marketing, but Joseph will explain if that really happened. He's thrilled about the quick penetration of broadband internet and digital video recorders that are changing the way traditional television commercials are being viewed by the audience, being skipped by the audience, and basically being ignored by the audience. And the basic premise of today's closing session is, does this blow up traditional television as we know it, and does it increase, much more important for the internet people in our market, does it increase our market size at the expense of television? Yay. The word is to Mr. Joseph Jeffe.
Thank you for the introduction in English, because if it had been in Dutch, my swak Afrikaans, because I'm from South Africa, would have probably picked up every second word, and I probably would have done a bad job. So at least he wasn't saying whatever he's about. Did you see that movie, My Cousin Vinny, where he basically stands up and he says a long speech, and he basically says, what that guy just said was bullshit, thank you. And the judge says, the jury will disregard everything Mr. Gambini just said except the words thank you. So I hope he didn't say that about me. I've got 25 minutes. Most of the time my own introduction takes about 25 minutes. So I'm going to go over a lot of ideas, and I want to throw them out. Some of them are maybe a couple of bombs. That's okay. I think it's so important now more than ever to ask tough questions, because if we don't ask tough questions, we're not going to get to tough answers. The first part of it is, life after the 30-second spot. Is the 30-second spot dead, dying, or has outlived its usefulness? Well, the official hypothesis is, in its existing form, the 30-second spot is either dead, dying, or has outlived its usefulness. And if you take the word in its existing form, that's my get-out-of-jail-free card, because basically what I'm saying to you is, if nothing else changes, then yes, it is dead, dying, or has outlived its usefulness. But it's a red herring. It's a complete red herring, because it's actually irrelevant. People say, is the 30-second spot dead or dying? I say, I don't care. It's irrelevant. You've looked at it glass half empty. Life after the 30-second spot, we're lazy human beings. We're animals at the end of the day. And as animals, we like to take the path of least resistance. People say, your book, The Death of the 30-second spot. I said, no, it's not called that. It's called Life After the 30-second spot. You break up with your boyfriend or your girlfriend, hopefully not your husband or your wife. Somebody says, there's life after Sheila, there's life after Robert. It means there are other fish in the sea. And I think that's the message. The message, you can see the crayons up there, right? Those of you with kids, you take your kids into a restaurant, and out comes the little 3-pack of crayons. Red, yellow, and blue, right? The 3 primary colors. And if your kids are quite creative, they'll make some greens and purples and oranges, or in the case of my 3-year-old son, he starts to eat the crayons. And then in about 3 minutes, they go back to like throwing them at each other and kind of hitting each other over the head, etc. It's a beautiful metaphor, because traditional advertising is dominated and represented by the red, the yellow, and the blue, the three primary colors, television, radio, and print. But today, Crayola has what they call their 96 big box. 96 colors. There are 17 shades of green. I didn't know that. I thought there was just green, dark green, and light green. There are apparently many others. And I don't profess to be a painter or a creative person to understand the nuances, but you know what? Consumers do understand the nuances. So the real message... Now, actually, funnily enough, I normally speak, and I feel like I'm at the Emmys or the Oscars. I normally speak until the music comes up, and that's my cue to stop. So is it time to wind down already? No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I lost the train of thought. So, 96 colors. Think about the 93. The real message, and I could actually stop my presentation right there, because the real takeaway is that there are 93 colors out there as a metaphor. There are all these options, and you owe it to yourselves, to your consumers, to your shareholders, to your employees, and to your brand to understand them, to explore them, to integrate them, to figure out which ones are right, at which times, in which quantities and combinations and permutations. And that really is the message of life after the 30-second spot. Explore those 93 colors. Before I continue, I want you to write this number down. It's an American number, but the world is flat, so any of you that have Skype in the room know that you can just dial America for free. So it's actually +1 for the US, 206-203-3255. This is part of my initiative, what I call presentations as conversations. That's actually the audio comment line of my podcast. So what I'm doing today, basically, is I'm saying to you, if you have a question that you don't get a chance to ask because I basically ran out of time, I want you to call the number. I want you to ask me a question, and next week on my podcast, or the following week, I'll answer your question. I'll spend 5 minutes on your question and answer your question personally. And I challenge you to do that. And I do that because I know that you're probably going to then tune in and listen and start hopefully subscribing to my podcast. But it's more important to show you that everything in this world, whether it is a 30-second spot, whether it's a text link on Google AdWords or AdSense, or whether it's a presentation, nothing is linear anymore. Nothing is one way. Everything is part of something bigger, and that bigger something is conversation, and that bigger something that is conversation is part of community as well. And you put community and conversation together, and you can see how even me in front of you today should not be a fleeting thing. You should not forget about me, I hope you don't, when I leave, because we can still continue talking in a quite personal level. And by the way, before I forget, apparently there are about 25 copies of my book that are going to be auctioned off or just given out at the stand. So you've got to go to the Energize stand. But what I'm going to say to you as well is I've got one copy. So for the first intelligent question that's asked to me, I'll give you a copy of my book. And I'll let the community decide if it was an intelligent question or not. Okay. So I'm going to skip past this. I call these my wife's slides, so I can tell you about who I am and the companies that I've worked with and done business with. I'd rather just get straight into the meat. This is the book, in a nutshell, problem, solution. The reason why I believe the 30-second spot in its existing form is dead, dying, or has outlived its usefulness. Simple. Too much clutter. Creativity sucks. Consumers aren't as dumb as they used to be, and unacceptable levels of wastage. I believe that there is a four-pronged rethink that will help us fix the problem. Rethinking the consumer, branding, advertising, and the advertising agency. And then finally, I introduce these 10 approaches: interactive, gaming, on-demand consumption, experiential marketing, long-form content, communal marketing, which doesn't mean buzz or viral marketing, because viral marketing is the lazy marketer's guide to new marketing. It means marketing to and through the community. Consumer-generated content, search, music, mobile, and things that make you go, and finally, branded entertainment. So let's kind of take a couple steps back for a moment. Let's talk about the olden days, right? Let's go back 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, back to the Industrial Revolution, to mass production, because that's why mass marketing came about, right? Because we mass-produced all of these widgets, and we had to figure out how to sell them. We make them, and then we sell them. not really so focused on consumers and what their needs are and desires, etc., etc. So in these days, companies lied, right? They would tell you that if you bought a Hummer in Los Angeles, who's been to LA before? How many of you have been stuck on the highway in LA, right? So they convince you in a 30-second spot that when you buy that Hummer, the roads will miraculously be cleared and you can drive backwards at 200 miles per hour on a deserted LA highway and do wheel spins and 180-degree handbrake turns, etc. And then, of course, put a whole bunch of disclaimers and legalese: professional driver, closed course, stunt double, do not attempt ever, please, do not sue us. We've been lying to our consumers for all these years. In the olden days, companies pretended they were deaf. They didn't know how to hear or how to listen or how to respond to consumers. There were no mechanisms for consumers to be able to voice their dissension or their opinion. Companies surrounded themselves with yes men. They coasted on being part of the chasing pack. And I think most importantly, they focused on the median consumer. They weren't interested in the innovative consumer, in the influencer, in the opinion leader, in the blogger, in that or those who were most likely to help an idea whose time has come tip the scales. They just focused on being all things to all people. The olden days, right? 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. Wrong. The olden days are today. Most companies are still acting this way. But these are not the olden days anymore. There is nowhere to run and nowhere to hide. On the left, what you see, it may look like Starbucks, but it's not. It's called the delocator. You punch in your zip code, and up pops all the mom and pop stores, coffee stores or little cafes in your area that are non-franchise. This is the collective consciousness of the community coming together to say we will continue to support the little guy and not let big corporations or corporate America bully us. On the right, very interesting, you see good old Pepsi doing something very, very conventional, right? Which is, look underneath the cap of a Pepsi bottle, right? Proof of purchase. And you will be able to see if you've won a 99-cent download on iTunes. So what's wrong with this picture? Well, 1 in every 3 wins. That's great. 33% odds. 1 in every 3 wins. What's wrong with this picture is 2 out of 3 lose. What's wrong with this picture is that Pepsi's community, Pepsi's consumer, right now are downloading songs illegally. So the 99-cent little carrot doesn't even mean anything to them. But that's irrelevant. So some bloke figures out that if they hold the bottle at 25 degrees to the light, they can see whether in fact they won or not. Sticks it up on his blog, and suddenly 1 in 1 win a free download, and 2 in 2 gather dust at the store. Consumers are so much smarter than we give them credit for. I know I'm going to run out of time, but I'll put this in a leave behind in a PDF, which we'll send out to all of you. But this, I could focus on this slide for half an hour. It shows you the fact that this was then, that was then, but this is now. And you see all the differences between what worked in the past and what works today, such as we've moved from top of mind consideration to top of page consideration. And I think all of you get that immediately, right? I'm talking about search. We've moved from this idea of the funnel of interest, awareness, interest, desire, action. Consumers are linear, predictable. They go through certain sequential steps. We now talk about the funnel of trust, where all the advertising in the world means jack squat, but ultimately someone we trust and respect that is credible and authentic can completely help us change our brand loyalty and our decisions. This is what it comes down to. 3 simple points about change. Technology is the change agent. It is the catalyst. It changes. The consumer has changed and continues to, but the organization, the marketer, refuses to change and resists change. So here's an interesting thought. I'm not going to ask you because most of you will agree with this statement, and then I'm going to say I disagree with you, so why would I do that? But most people believe the consumer is empowered. And I don't know that the consumer is empowered. How many of you, now I will ask you the question, how many of you get home after a long day at the office and stare at yourselves in the mirror and flex your empowerment muscles? Anyone? Look at me, how powerful I am. Look at my remote control. There's always one. That's just because you're good looking. I do that too, but it's because I think I'm good looking too. So one person thinks he's empowered, and the rest of you are saying, wait a second, I'm just a human being. All I want to do is be loved, treated well, be recognized, be rewarded with relevant messages, appreciated. We're just human beings. There are just so many hours in the day. We only have one attention span. Here's what I think has happened. I think the empowerment is a relative empowerment. It's not that consumers are empowered, it's that we as marketers have become powerless because we continue to chase our consumers that are so far ahead of us with a blunt object, such as the 30-second spot, and hit them over the head again and again and again and again, and that's called frequency, until they change the channel or they just ignore us or forget about us. So that's something to think about. This is what I believe are the four forces that are creating this new marketing perfect storm. Broadband, wireless, search, and the concept of the network. And I'll explain to you very quickly in the interest of time a little catch about each one. Broadband to me does not equal speed. Of course speed is important. Broadband to me equals always on. It's like, the diet. Why should I, why put off for tomorrow what I can do for today, except if it's a diet? We don't need to defer needs or wants anymore. We don't have to see an ad at 9 o'clock at night and then say, well, I'm just going to race into my car and go to that store which happens to be closed. Now we can go to the American Apparel store in Second Life if we want to, but for the most part, there is nothing we can do about those needs if we want to act or convert through a television commercial. But with broadband, if we want to find out more, if we want to see where our nearest store is, if we want to go and book a test drive, we're always on, and we just can satisfy our needs immediately. Wireless. Wireless does not equal cell phones. Wireless means no wires. It means I'm connected anywhere, anytime, any place, on my terms. That's what search is. Search is not about Google AdWords and keywords. Search is about control. Search is about on my terms. I'm connected anywhere, any place, anytime, on my terms, and here's the kicker. And I'm connected to everyone else that's just like me. In the olden days, you know the marketing theory, right? If you piss a consumer off, right, they'll tell 15 or 20 of their friends. If you delight them, they'll tell 5 to 7. Well, today's consumer says, it used to be fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Today's consumer says, fool me once, screw you. And I won't tell 15 to 20 of my friends. I'll tell 1 million of my closest strangers. Because we're connected to one another. We have the wisdom of crowds that permeates and is pervasive through our oxygen, through our very veins right now as consumers. There is a new consumerism. Connected anywhere, any place, anytime, on my terms, and connected to one another. Now those are your 4 meta trends or technologies. On top of that, as communicators, as agency people, as marketers, as publishers, how do you go out to market? How do you build programs on that? Well, I have 4 ideas that almost fit nicely on top of each one. Experience, involvement, permission, and conversation. Experience and broadband fit beautifully together, right? Because broadband deepens an experience with sight, with sound, with motion, with interactivity. Search and permission are one and the same. Conversation and being connected to people is one and the same. And the wireless one doesn't work too well with involvement. But the point there is about being able to not just say click here or punch the monkey anymore, but actually involve people. Let them submit, let them contribute, let them create, let them partner with you to win. This new, everybody talks about Web 2.0. I hate the term, but I will talk about Web Marketing 2.0. I will talk about recommendation, relationship, trust, influence, content, reliability, co-creation, authority, dialogue, and conversation. Many of those things should be not new to you. Many of these things are fundamentals of marketing communication. But they are so much more powerful now, and we have so many more tools to activate them and to amplify them and to really bring them to life. Very simply, on one little napkin, I can talk to you about the future and the evolution of richness of communication. You look at radio, print, TV, and the web in terms of time spent. What's the maximum amount of time you can spend with a 30-second commercial? What's the maximum amount of time you can spend with a 30-second commercial? 30 seconds, right? That's why I'm putting TV there. But with the web, unlimited possibilities. The average consumer spends 7.5 minutes interacting with subservient chicken. I have no idea why. 7.5 minutes, that's 15 30-second commercials for anyone that is keeping count. So, on the one axis you have voluntary time spent, and on the other axis you have all our senses that are playing together. Sight, sound, sight and sound, sight, sound and motion, and now sight, sound, motion and interactivity. And when you put at least sight and sound and sight, sound and motion and interactivity together, you actually see that the medium defines itself. We listen to radio. Why? Because we use our ears. We read magazines and newspapers. Why? Because we use our eyes. We watch television, but we participate, we involve ourselves in the web. The internet, and I wanted to really focus a little bit on interactive in this presentation, because too often I think we just see the superficial layer of the web. We see an opportunity to revisit the sins of the fathers on the children. We see the opportunity just to do the same thing again, which is mass marketing. I want you to see a different strategic imperative. I don't want you to see the internet as the integrator. I want you to see the internet actually is the integrator. If integration is a vital part of what you do, the only way that you can connect the dots, the only way you can integrate all of these balls that you throw up in the air is through the web. Because if you look at the definition of integration, it says to make into a whole by bringing all parts together, to unify, to unite. The only way you unify and you unite the big idea and how that big idea is distributed is through the web. And I'm going to give you one metaphor. Think about a train station. The trains come in, the trains go out. Some people start their journey at the train station, some people end their journey. Some people are in transit, right? The metaphor. Some people are at awareness, pre-awareness, interest, desire, intent to purchase, action, repeat purchase, satisfaction, word of mouth, whatever the case may be. There is a conductor. There is a timetable. But some people even go to the station and they're not even riding the train. They're just passing by. They're taking shelter from the storm. They're going to use the restroom or go to the food court, hopefully not at the same time. But you understand how that works. That's the web. The web is ultimately the chameleon of modern-day marketing. Anybody here that refers to the web as a medium, first raise your hand and then slap your hand and then lower your hand. Don't call it a medium. Media is a swear word. So is advertising. We can be so much bigger than media and advertising now. We can't look at the web as a medium. We have to look at it as a storefront, a customer service center, a research tool, a communication device, a friend, a virtual world. It's whatever you want it to be. And by you, I refer to the consumer, and by you, I refer to the marketer as well. Here's a reality check. This was on the cover of Ad Age, the most influential trade publication in the US. It said, reality check. Blogs and pods are potent tools, but the reach most marketers crave still comes from good old TV, print, and internet ads. I looked at this and I said, when did interactive become the new traditional? Interactive's not interactive anymore. It's not new media. It's traditional. Certainly Ad Age thinks it's that way, and apparently so do marketers, because they're out just trying to get the reach. And instead of saying 8% listen to podcasts, I love that. I'm one of them. I'm a podcaster. I listen to podcasts. But as a marketer, I'm saying, don't you want to go after the 92%? Aren't you interested in the 92% rather than that cluttered, blurred pool of mass? The other thing that came in Ad Age, which also was interesting, was, in addition to slamming television's selling power, this quote from McKinsey, of all people, that said, we are not telling everybody to shift, should everybody shift 30% of their dollars to the web? No, there wouldn't be room today if everybody wanted to shift online. The web is not sold out. It never was. Every day, the web creates new inventory, new undiluted and unpolluted inventory. And if you're just trying to buy and place and force-fit your 30-second spots online, then yes, unfortunately, the web is sold out. But when you look at consumer-generated content, whether it's YouTube or MySpace or blogs or whatever the case may be, every day this web gets bigger and this web gets better. And this web gets a little bit murkier too. But you can actually go out as well and create inventory. You don't have to be held hostage by media sellers anymore. They bring something significant to the table, make no mistake. I'll be clear about that. But you can play just as active a role as well. And it's simply because this is one bubble that already has burst. It's the bubble of consumer-generated content. It's the bubble that actually says, listen to this is interesting, of the I am generation, in other words, those born after 1980, 62% of the content they consume comes from people they know personally. That's Dick and Jane, and Janet and John. It's each other. And according to Adam Curry and Ron Bloom from Podshow, they talk about the 550 rule, that in 5 years' time, 50% of all content will be consumer-generated. That's incredibly powerful right now. It is an opportunity and it's a threat, depending on how you see it and how you react to it and how you proact to it as well. Because ultimately, this is what's happening in front of our eyes right now. We start off with, let's go back to the olden days, mass media, the spray and pray approach. One thing to all people, trying to be all things to all people. It's what they call the shotgun approach, or as I fondly call the Dick Cheney approach, right? Works much better in Europe than it does the US. That was kind of superseded or replaced with the one-to-one, Peppers and Rogers. But we all invested hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars in all these big fancy technologies and databases, and we didn't have a clue what to do with all the data. So we kind of buried ourselves and drowned in all the data. This was very quickly replaced with one from one. That's search. One day somebody said, well, wait a second, why do we always have to initiate and start the conversation? What would happen if the consumer started it and we responded to it? And then finally, and this is where I think it's all going, it's what I call the many-to-many model. It's the fact that there are all these conversations going on around us. They began before we came into this world, and they will continue long after we leave this world. And at best, as marketers, as brands, we can be invited to participate. We can be invited to catalyze. We can be invited to join. In fact, we can even make the conversation better if we really do our jobs much better. Now, I was interviewed for one of, I think it was your trade publications or newspapers, and the reporter said to me, literally just before I came on, and I changed my presentation, he said, that's all very well, but what would you do if you were if you were in the paperclip business? And I said, you just gave me such a softball, and I'm going to hit it out the park. Carl McDonald, who knows who Carl McDonald is? Who knows the story of one red paperclip? Those must be the people that are reading Jaffe Juice, I think. No, I'm kidding. It's a wonderful story. A guy who starts off with one red paperclip and says, I'm going to trade this paperclip for a house. I'm going to keep bartering this until I get a house. Until I get that house via C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, and O. Those are the different steps, by the way. Including Corbin Burnson, Arnie Becker from LA Law, who actually exchanged a snow globe for a walk-on role in a movie he was producing. I interviewed Corbin on my podcast. Kyle got his house through the power of conversation and social media. And so I said to this reporter, what would have happened if any company that either produces paperclips or sells them, one of your Office Depots or Staples or companies that are in the kind of, news agents, what would have happened if they had sponsored or given him his house? In a way, it would have been a perfect closed loop. These opportunities are all around us. We need to open our eyes and we need to see them, and we need to jump on them because they're all around us every single day. I have like 3 slides left, and I think I've probably got about maybe 2 minutes for one question. I want to show you another example. And I think the point here is if we buy into interactive as the integrator, and if we buy into it as the chameleon of modern day marketing, and if we buy into new marketing, if we buy into social media, if we buy into the power of community and conversation, I want to illustrate what we should do and what we shouldn't do. So I'm going to start off by showing you a 30-second spot for MasterCard in the US.
Blank, $9. Blank, $60. Blank, $110. Blank, priceless. write your own MasterCard ad. Just fill in the blanks at priceless.com. We'll air the best one.
I mean, here's how I would summarize that ad. It rhymes with blank, and it begins with a W. So you can connect the dots there. That is what I call incrementalization. What they've done is they've recognized consumer-generated content is important, and then they've said, well, how can we create a 30-second spot about that? You can't take incremental steps and expect an exponential result. That's one of the things, the first things I tell marketers. You can't take incremental steps and expect an exponential result. MasterCard have been living consumer-generated content for years on the web, all these spoof ads that have been created. To me, it is such a pity to then go and create what you just saw now. I'm going to show you one of those consumer-generated ads. This was after the Boston Red Sox won the World Series, and they hadn't won the World Series in like 82 or 83 years. They called it the curse of the Bambino, the curse of Babe Ruth being sold from the Red Sox to the Yankees. So to understand this commercial, just take, you know, whether it's, what's the big football side in Rotterdam? Who? All right. Take PSV Eindhoven, no. Take any side that you love and truly are passionate about and replace it here. And watch this. This was consumer-generated.
Red Sox World Series tickets.
$5,000. My stereo, my TV, my car, my house. I give you anything. Go Red Sox! My motorcycle, my firstborn kid, anything.
Seeing the Red Sox win the World Series, priceless.
Sox!
There are some things money can't buy. For everything else, there's MasterCard.
$5,000? Oh, crap, I wasn't serious!
MasterCard congratulates the 2004 World Series champion Boston Red Sox and reminds their fans that we have them all on tape.
All right, guys, that's everything. Let's roll.
Get off!
Honey!
My baby!
Honey, it's only fair. Come on.
No.
Come on, the Sox won the whole thing.
No!
Go Sox!
Go stop!
Come on.
My baby!
Look, that's the way it is.
I don't think I said that.
Yes, you did, Mr. Leary.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes, you said, and I quote, I'd give my left nut to have the Sox win the series.
Yeah, that kind of does sound like me. Ah, shit.
MasterCard, proud new owner of 90% of New England.
Ow!
And 50% of Dennis Leary's nuts.
You bastards.
So you can see the difference to what is out there, what is organic, what is authentic, and then what is kind of contrived and what is force-fitted and force-fed into this nondescript 30-second standardized container. All right, I'm going to leave you with just two thoughts. Ultimately, new marketing is a state of mind. It is a culture shift, a paradigm shift. It is change communication or change management for communication. I don't want you to think, and you can see I've taken pains today to basically say don't take your 30-second spots and shove them online in the form of intrusive audio that is not user-initiated, pre-roll, crap, etc., etc. Go out there and create the opportunities or respond to them or capitalize and catalyze those conversations. On the left, you see a non-traditional approach to a non-traditional approach. You see this idea of a super glue called Henkel, and you see a monitor stuck to a wall. And it's not just, hey, wait a second, there's a timer that says 108 days later, the monitor is still stuck to the wall. Gee, do you think that they actually believe in their product, and do you think their product works? But they took it one step further. They allowed people to actually put in something that appeared on the monitor. So they were basically demonstrating not just that this product works and we believe in the product, but that this is real and authentic and not retouching and not gizmos and gadgets and not disclaimers and legalese and professional driver closed course. But on the right, you see a very traditional approach. Well, you see a very traditional out-of-home, a billboard, a bus shelter, but a non-traditional approach to a traditional approach. And again, same point. 3M believes in their product. They believe in their product so much that they've stuck all this money behind their actual product. Again, I would ask you the question, do you think these guys believe in their product? They're both doing the same thing, demonstrating, as opposed to informing, persuading, and reminding, demonstrating, empowering, and involving. And I think the point is, Let us be non-traditional in everything we do, whether we're talking about the 3 colors or the 93 colors. I'm going to leave you with a quote from a photographer, Diane Arbus, who actually said this, which I think is just absolutely beautiful. This was told to me by a creative director. She said, and I'll read it to you very quickly, it's what I've never seen before that I recognize. Consumers are just like that. It's what they've never seen before that they recognize. Not what they've seen before. What they've seen before, they shut out and they just filter out. But what they've never seen before, they recognize instantly because it's the truth and because it's authentic. And if we can understand that, we understand everything. Thank you very much.